Hi and hello everybody, it's Fern. Welcome back to another PLANTY video. Thank you so much for joining me for this begonia care guide. Today we're going to be talking about cane begonias specifically because they are the type of begonia that I have the most. They're the ones that I think are the easiest. They're also the ones that I have the most experience with, and they're probably my favorite to grow. There are some varieties of cane begonia that require more specialized care, like high humidity, but there are so many available that can just grow in regular room conditions and are actually a lot easier than people think. One of the most popular and widely available cane begonias is begonia maculata. Mine is just small right now. This was a quite large plant and I recently chopped it up and decided to try it out in leca for the first time, and it's going really well. But look at how beautiful she's looking. I just got this absolutely massive leaf for the size of this plant, like so crazy. She's stunning. She is a classic for a reason. Begonia maculata was actually my first ever begonia, and I was very nervous, but I needn't be because it was very easy to grow. So today I'm going to share with you everything that I do to take care of my cane begonias. Also, if you're wondering how you can tell a begonia is a cane begonia, it is quite literally because the stem looks like a cane. You can see it clearly on my begonia thurstonii here because she's a little leggy, but they have this it gets quite thick and woody when they're mature, but it's a very cane-like, like straight stem. A lot of these plants can grow quite tall as well, versus other begonias like rhizomatis, which tend to creep along the top of the soil rather than growing upwards in the cane-like fashion. Many of them are the angel wing type with the spots. There's a lot of different spotted angel wing begonia varieties, but there are also some that do not have the spots, like this begonia thurstonii that I just had. This is one of my favorites. It's so pillowy and it can get really dark, and it's just very glossy and beautiful. So it's a very different look than the spotted angel wings. There are hundreds of different types of begonias and hybrids, so there really is so much diversity in the genus, which is another reason that I love begonias. They also flower, which is one of my favorite characteristics in a houseplant, so that's very exciting. I haven't had all of mine flower for me yet, but some of them have for sure, and some of them I'm sure will flower for me in the future. I feel like the most important consideration for these plants is good lighting. They really appreciate bright indirect light. You do not want to scorch these in the sun. No putting them right in a west facing window or right in a south window, but pulled back a few feet is okay. They love grow lights. I actually grow, I think, all of these in under grow lights right now. It's winter for me here, so it's very dark and gloomy. So many of my plants need the assistance of grow lights. They can handle lower light like a north facing window, but I don't think that it's ideal, and you might start to see some legginess, which again looks like this, where the internodes are quite spread apart. Like there's not very many leaves for such a tall stem. So they will start to look spindly like that, whereas if they're getting enough light, then you will have something like this that is really bushy and full. This is my begonia Fanny Moser. This is one of my all-time favorite cane begonias because of how dark it is. This plant is literally almost black. It's so beautiful. But yeah, I have this quite close to a grow light, so she has a lot of leaves on her. Same with this one. Oh, lighter than I expected. My begonia white ice. This one is also grown under grow lights, and the leaves are quite dense, quite close together, which is what we are going for. So you can kind of adjust the lighting based on what you are observing in your plant in terms of the length of stem between the leaves and the coloring of the leaves. If they're getting bleached looking, they might be getting too much light. It's kind of trial and error in that regard, but I would try to give them as much light as you can without scorching them, of course. Regarding substrate, I have heavily leaned into semi-hydro and self-watering pots for my begonias. However, some of them are still in soil, such as my white ice right here, but it is a struggle to keep up with the watering. I'll be honest with you, it's even a struggle to keep up with the watering of some of these in self-watering pots, which is crazy. Some of them I have to water like every 3 or 4 days because they just use up the water so quickly. There's no denying that they are thirsty plants. They're probably the thirstiest plants in my collection. So if you decide to go with soil, be prepared to be watering a lot. And also, I would not pot these up in terracotta. I would definitely go for plastic or plastic nursery pot and a cash pot kind of situation. But they do well in soil if you can keep up with the watering. And my go-to soil mix for begonias is very simple. It's just a regular potting soil with a bit of vermiculite added. I like to use the ProMix HP. And if I had to guess, I would say I do about 4 or 5 parts potting soil and then 1 part vermiculite. And that just adds a little bit more water retention to the mix, and they seem to really like it. So if you can keep up with watering, then that is a great, just like simple potting mix for them. Or even if you don't have vermiculite, even just potting soil with 1 part of perlite added in for just a little bit of drainage. But I would not put these in a chunky soil mix, like something that's made for aeroids. They're not going to be very happy with that, and it's just going to be drying out way too quickly. So I have some, like I said, in leca, same with the Thurstonii over here, but I have the most experience with growing in pond and self-watering pots, which is what the Fanny Moser is in right here. And I get beautiful results from this, you guys. Like my begonias that I've grown in pond, absolutely love it. I also have a lucerne that's in pond, and my Magdalene Madsen. Let me go grab her because she's actually so cute. I just have to show her off. Some of the leaves that I propagated from are a little bit worse for wear, so just ignore that. But she is such a beautiful velvety hybrid, very easygoing, also in flower, as you can see. But this one I have grown for years in pond. This is obviously just a cutting from the mother plant. But she absolutely loved it, did amazing. And this is like my kind of test run for semi-hydro for begonias. And yeah, it went so well that I opted to put more of them into pond. And like I said, that has also been going really well for the rest of them. The jury's still out on whether I'm going to enjoy leca as much as the pond, but so far it's going okay. You can see some of the roots in there. Leca's flying out. She is looking a little pale though, and I don't know if that's because she's just getting established or because I need to up the fertilizer. My first instinct is to guess that it's a fertilizer issue, although the leaves are huge, so maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see her spit out a few more leaves before I can really decide what I think of growing this one in leca. But if you're comfortable with semi-hydro, I highly recommend popping your begonias into that. Otherwise, try to stay on top of your watering with soil. Also, in terms of the kind of pot setup here, you are going to need to stake your cane begonias. So there's a few different things that I use. I have just these green plastic stakes. I just secured the canes to it with these little dragonfly clips. Otherwise, I just use twine once the canes get too thick to use the little clips, but those work fine. Obviously this one is getting taller now, so I'm probably gonna have to switch out to something else eventually. Another option that I use often is just the plastic U trellises. And this is the same kind of thing. This is the thing, like, with begonias, they tend to look a little crazy in the back because of all the staking and everything, but then they look beautiful at the front. But yeah, let's take a look at what's going on back here. We just have this plastic trellis, and then we have a mixture of dragonfly clips and twine here. And I just kind of go crazy with securing this plant how I want to. And sometimes when you stake them up, they look crazy at first, but you have to give them a few weeks to settle in and wait for the leaves to turn out and stuff, and then they'll look better. So don't panic if you stake up your begonia and it's looking awful at first. They do need some time to settle in. In terms of getting a bushy begonia, you actually don't have to prune them. They will branch out themselves. You can prune them, of course, and I enjoy to prune mine every once in a while. And then that way you can get cuttings and you can pop them back into the pot at the bottom, or you can water propagate them. For example, I have a water propagated begonia cutting right here that actually has some nice roots on it. I'm gonna pop this into semi-hydro sometime soon. But yeah, they propagate incredibly easy in water. If you just take a stem cutting, they will root pretty much anywhere along the stem. But I have also just put a cutting back into the pot, and then they root and grow out a new plant from there. So they're very low maintenance that way. Like, you don't have to do any special cutting back or pruning or anything. They will branch out on their own. There's a loud train going by. In terms of fertilizer, I would not skimp on that. I think that they do really appreciate a good feed, especially if you want to see these beautiful colors and potentially get flowers as well. I usually fertilize every second watering, so that tends to be every 7 to 10 days, I would say, that these get fertilizer. And I use the General Hydroponics Flora series because, like I said, most of these are in semi-hydro, and that is what I use for my semi-hydro plants. As for the fertilizer one, I also use General Hydroponics diluted by half. And then I also supplement every couple of weeks fake kelp-based fertilizer. I use Kelpie, and that's just to give them an extra boost. I don't think that organic fertilizers are meant for semi-hydro, so I skip the Kelpie for the other ones, but the General Hydroponics gives them everything that they need, and they seem to be really happy with that. But honestly, I'm just sharing what I use. I would not get too hung up on fertilizer. I find it fun to play around with different fertilizers, but honestly, any basic houseplant fertilizer, if you want to play it safe and kind of test it and see how your begonias react to it, then I recommend by just giving half the recommended amount, like diluting it by 50%, and then you're not going to risk any burning or anything. But like I said, I feel like they are quite hungry, so I haven't had any issues with over fertilizing. Humidity. I feel like people, oh my gosh, she fully just went into my cup of tea. I feel like people get really hung up on humidity for begonias and think that they need really humid conditions to thrive, and some of them do, but many cane type begonias do not need really high humidity. What most of us have in our households is probably fine. And what I think people mistake for a humidity issue is often a watering issue. Like when you see crispy leaves and stuff like that, I think that more than often the plant is not getting watered enough. There's this little yellowing leaf here that I just keep eyeing, so we'll just take that off. And that's completely normal for, especially at the bottom of the plant, like older leaves. This white ice has actually had quite the comeback. She was not doing well a couple of months ago, but begonias are very forgiving and they will happily grow back out even after an aggressive prune. If you're unhappy with how the leaves are looking, chop them back and they'll grow right out. Anyways, that's off topic. Humidity. Don't worry about it. Unless you have like 15% humidity or something crazy like that, then maybe they will be unhappy. But I think that more often than not, it is a watering issue. So stay on top of your watering and I think that they'll be fine. Or try out semi-hydro. If you have a soil begonia that isn't happy and it's crisping, try growing it in semi-hydro. Take cuttings, root those in water, and then plant them in pon. I can only vouch for pon at this point because leca is still experimental. Anywho, temperature, they basically want the same temperatures that we do. They're tropical plants, so they don't want to be in cold, drafty spaces. I wouldn't grow them in an area that gets much below 15 degrees Celsius or much higher than, as my heat is literally turning on and is gonna hit the mic. Let's zap that real quick. I would try to keep them between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. Of course, sometimes there's heat waves and stuff like that in the summer, and I know my house can get really hot, but that's usually not for very long. So I haven't had any bad outcomes from that, but in general, my house is usually around like 22 degrees, so it's perfect for them. I have also grown some of my begonias outside on my covered deck, covered because I don't want them to get scorched by the sun, and they've loved it out there. So that is another option as well. If you want to put them outside in the summertime in a covered location, I'm sure that they would absolutely love that, if it's not like an extremely hot climate where you are. In terms of repotting, I actually don't repot my begonias super often. I feel like the biggest indicator for me is just when they are drinking up their water extremely fast. Like when I notice that the time between waterings is getting really close together, then I start to think that, okay, maybe there's a lot of roots in this pot, maybe we need to size up. More so for my soil ones, but I don't think that they mind being a bit root bound, to be honest with you. They have very fine roots, so I prefer not to mess with them super often. But of course, every once in a while, they do benefit from a good repot. So yeah, not a plant that really requires a ton of maintenance that way, just kind of an as needed basis. I already touched on propagation. I mostly water propagate, like I said, super easy. I've also done sphagnum moss. Like you can see, this one is in sphagnum moss and it rooted up super well in that. Yeah, I think in general, these are like one of the easiest types of plants to propagate. So they're perfect for sharing with people, creating multiples, creating babies. I have a really high success rate with propagating them. So they're a great beginner plant in that sense. And I think that that's pretty much it, other than pests, which I literally do not deal with on my begonias, which is crazy because if you are a regular viewer on my channel, then you know that pests love to torment me. I have a lot of issues with mealybugs. I've had thrips in the past, spider mites, aphids. I've had pretty much every pest. Oh, actually, you know what? The one pest that I have had an issue with this begonia in particular, is actually scale, which is so weird and random. Because I don't really have a lot of issues with scale, but yeah, I did have a scale problem with this plant at one time. It just, oh yeah, the scale loved it. It really got quite infested. And that was annoying, and I ended up actually chopping and restarting this plant. Obviously it's grown out again now. They are very fast growers as well, so don't be sad if you have to chop. But yeah, scale was an issue. And for me, it was just easiest to take propagations and start over. But other than that, like the main pests, they don't seem to be interested in my begonia, which is lovely because so many of my other plants are of interest to pests. But yeah, they've been really easy for me that way. You guys can comment below and let me know what pests you've had on your begonias, but I don't think I've ever had spider mites or mealies or anything like that on them. So that's lovely. Anywho, I think that that's it. I hope that that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. I will get back to you. But yeah, I feel like that is the lowdown on everything that I do to grow mine. Like I said, I find them really easygoing. I think keeping up with the watering is just the hardest part. So if you're struggling with them, it's a good chance that they are just thirsty and hard to keep up with. I just love begonia so much. It's definitely one of my favorite genus of plants. So I hope that this helps you on your begonia journey as well. Or if you were just watching to hang out, thank you so much. I think it's been a year since my last begonia collection video as well. So perhaps I will have to update that within the next few months. I will link my 2024, I guess. Whenever I did the last one, I will link that in the description if you want to see a show and tell of all of the begonia in my collection. Other than that, I really appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!